So let's bring in our reporter Tumaole Mohlaoli, who's been following the story quite closely, as you've done, Tommy, with the previous releases of the first 4 parts of the State Capture Inquiry report. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning,
So the inquiry missed its court-mandated date of the 15th of June. Yes. Then again, we were previewing on Monday the release of the report as well. That didn't happen. Yes. What do we know about the delays?
Well, what we know about the delays, as mentioned earlier, is that, of course, it was about Chief Justice Raymond Zondo saying that he wanted to have a closer look at the report to ensure that there were no mistakes and there were no, contradictions or any issues with the final draft of the report. Now, what delayed him in terms of his work is that he had earlier also indicated during the report, the release of the initial report that preparations with, of course, the Judicial Services Commission interviews,
which he was chairing,
would interfere slightly in terms of the final preparation of the handover. When it comes also to the issue of course, the handover itself, he also indicated that he would want to look at the final draft, as the statement from the Commission indicates, and go through it with a fine-tooth comb to ensure that there were no issues and no inconsistencies. Now, when we look at the dates and the timelines now, the statement from the presidency indicates that, and I quote, a tentative date of Wednesday, 22 June, was therefore agreed due to this further delay and to President Ramaphosa being scheduled to deliver the eulogy at the official funeral of King Zanzokulu Sikau on Tuesday, 21st June. In Flagstaff, Eastern Cape.
So that was yesterday?
That was yesterday. So this was something that was should have been known, something that would have been, on the timeline in terms of the presidency's planning once, of course, news of the king's passing was announced. So certainly that was something that would not necessarily have been planned for, but once it came out, I think it could have been handled better in terms of alerting the public to what was going on.
So the opposition having various issues with the release of this 5th and final installment of the report. First of all, around the delays, they're saying that discussion held between the Chief Justice and the Commission Chair, Raymond Zondo, and President Cyril Ramaphosa is untoward. Of course, those two parties say they were discussing issues around the delays, the opposition not buying that. And then the second issue will come to my mind in a moment. But what do you know about the opposition and what it's saying about these continuous delays?
Yes, the opposition very upset and very unhappy with the delays, particularly the handling about the communication of the delays. And when communication does come out confirming a certain date, because as of last week we had the information that would have come out at least by Monday. However, that didn't happen. And now we are told that the Commission report will be released, and it will be released in Cape Town. So the communication between the presidency certainly and the Commission would have been the Commission's secretariat around those particular delays. For the opposition, paints a picture of perhaps a little bit of dilly-daddling and a little bit of unhandedness and uncalled for handedness and overarching interference in the process of handling and handing over of the report, something they're not happy with, because they are starting to suggest, some political parties, as well as perhaps even if you look at social media and people are talking on platforms like Twitter, for instance, Facebook, for instance, very wild speculations there, and people talking about perhaps the final report being doctored, not knowing what would be dealt with, because they were of the view that the final report will be dealing also with the appearance of President Cyril Ramaphosa before the Commission of Inquiry and what the Commission's view was in terms of his testimony. As we know, that will not be dealt with in the final report. Of course, the SABC, as you have mentioned there, and PRASA and others would be dealt with there. So this is something that it's very dangerous to go with the speculation and in a lack of what is going on officially. One would defer to the statements, although they are dated. The one that I'm referring to with the presidency was released. This would be released, of course, on the 20th of June.
So that was on Monday?
That was on Monday. Since then, from the presidency, the official communique, there's been nothing. As of the 20th of June, all we know is that the report will be handed over in Cape Town. This is quite also interesting, because the previous reports, whether they were done electronically or symbolically following the initial report that was released in January, have been done at the Union Buildings here in Pretoria. So why it will be done in Cape Town, one only wonders whether it is a scheduling thing, where the President had to be in Cape Town, whether there was just a view that they had to shift it to the other seat of power, the Parliament.
I mean, I think we can agree that the optics of it just doesn't look good. The phone call between President Cyril Ramaphosa and Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, the continuous delays now of the fifth and final installment of the report, so much so that the opposition also says the President should not be the one to be at that official handover. He shouldn't be the one to accept the official version of the fifth and final part of the inquiry's report.
Indeed, Michelle, the phone call, raises a very interesting question because does that mean that, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo and the President were discussing the handover only, or did the conversation, or the delays as well, or does the conversation veer into the contents? This is what political parties are upset about. They don't know what the scope of the discussions were. They don't know whether previously there had been any such discussions, on the eve of the release of the other reports. And this is something that has raised many, many questions and has left many, much sour taste in many mouths. So when one looks at that, it certainly does beg the question, why was there such a change in how the handling of the report handover has been done for the final report? One might be, when one looks at the statement, seen to veer towards whether it's more about the ceremony of it all. This is the final report. It means it's the end of the road in terms of the Commission of Inquiry's work, in terms of its scope of reference, and maybe it was all about the pomp and ceremony and preparing for that. One can't leave that out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's meant to really bring together all of the previous reports as well and really wrap up the work of the State Capture Inquiry 3 years later and over R1 billion later as well.